All right, we are back here on SportsLine. Phone lines open, 737-7767. Call us up. Let us know what you think. Tennessee scenario in the SEC East. The Vols taking on Alabama on Saturday. Can really take things into their own hands if they can figure out how to beat the #1 team in the country. Found it interesting. Butch Jones said yesterday at his weekly press conference, kind of looking forward to the week. He says he thinks this is the best Alabama team that there has been. Obviously, Alabama's won 4 of the last 7 national championships. He's talking about that era under Nick Saban. He thinks this is the best team. Interesting thoughts to me. Obviously, there's a ton of talent down there, but you're talking about a true freshman quarterback. I don't know if, as good as their running backs are, I don't know if you have the Heisman Trophy type of guy like a Mark Ingram or Derrick Henry in that backfield right now. The defense is loaded. There's no question about that. But I don't know. That's an interesting statement. And oftentimes, I mean, Lou Holtz is the guy who called Texas State Western the greatest team he's ever seen every week before a game when he was coaching in Notre Dame. There are coaches that do that, just give you the coach speak, that build up the opponent to try to get their players' attention and to set up the game. I get that. But I did find it interesting because when you're talking about Alabama, you're talking about a bunch of really good teams. And it's obvious. You don't have to lie that week. You don't have to embellish how good Alabama is. But to go over the top and say you think this is the best version of Alabama, I found that interesting that he would do that. Vanderbilt heads between the hedges on Saturday. 11 o'clock kickoff against Georgia. The Bulldogs, Kirby Smart, have been a bit up and down. But Jacob Eason, to me, continues to get better and better as he plays. True freshman quarterback. Eventually, he's going to be great. He's going to be the best in a league that is struggling to find elite quarterbacks right now. Jacob Eason is the next one. You know, Joshua Dobbs has been great for Tennessee so far this year, especially in the last few weeks. Chad Kelly's had his moments at Ole Miss. But in terms of just being a true, pure quarterback, Jacob Eason's the next great one in the SEC. And we've seen bits and pieces of that so far, and I think we'll see more and more of that as he continues to get reps and experience. That's what Vanderbilt has to face this weekend. Commodores 0-3 in SEC play, 2-4 on the season. I said on this very show coming into the year that I didn't see any possible scenario in which Derek Mason would get fired short of just a complete implosion. I still think he's relatively safe, but I feel like it's not out of the realm of possibility that a change needs to happen. They're 0-3 at SEC play. They just simply cannot score offensively. They have, 33 points or something like that in SEC play? You got to be better than that. You got to be better than that if you're Vanderbilt. Derek Mason still cannot answer for the offensive issues that the Commodores have. They've lost all these games close, and these are the games that they needed to win. I mean, maybe you take Florida out there, but South Carolina was a game coming into the year you felt like Vanderbilt should win. Kentucky was a game that if Vanderbilt's going to be in contention for a bowl game, you feel like that's a game they should be able to win. Well, now they've lost them both. And they lost to Georgia Tech on the road. Where do the wins come from? You're trying to justify improvement for this team. Where do they come from? And if they don't come, is Derek Mason in trouble? I think it probably has to get really bad down the stretch of this season for a change to be made. But like I said, I thought this was a team heading into the year, when you looked at the schedule, I thought it was pretty easy to see 4 or 5 wins with the chance to get to 6 or 7, if there was any improvement at all on the offense, and if that happened, Derek Mason is absolutely 100% safe. But I'm not sure the offense hasn't regressed. I mean, it was terrible last year, so it's not quite that bad, but it's still awful. It is still impotent, not creative, certainly not explosive. And that's been the recipe for disaster. The defense, with the exception of the Georgia Tech game, has played pretty well. Once again for Derek Mason. One thing he does do well is scheme up a defense. But if the offense gives you nothing, if you give up anything, you're in trouble. And that's been his problem. Your thoughts on Derek Mason's future at Vanderbilt as well. 737-7767. Talking a lot of college football tonight. We will also talk some more Titans coming up. Probably hear from Mike Mularkey in just a few moments. But first we go to the phones. Kevin, good evening. You're first up tonight here on SportsLine.
Hey, good evening, Steve. I guess I'll get this thing started for you tonight, brother.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, I got a question, and I wanted to comment about the balls, too. I'm a diehard Big Orange guy. My question is, does Mr. Sankey have executive power as a commissioner, and can he make a decision and be okay with it? And the second question I wanted to ask, let's say the Vols do beat Alabama on Saturday. You could be willing to bet Florida's going to want to try to play that game as soon as possible. It looks to me like, I don't know, maybe they might have found a loophole. I mean, a 10-2 Vols team not going to the SEC championship with a win over Florida, it's not going to sit right with the University of Tennessee. And, possibly open up the door, Steve, look at the financial impact. I mean, we're a possible Orange Bowl projected bowl team, and that's major financial impact it would have on the University of Tennessee. What are your thoughts on Mr. Sankey as executive power and the financial impact that the university would suffer?
No question, Kevin, and I'll take it a step further. I think even at 10-2, assume Tennessee loses for a second this weekend to Alabama, but runs the table, goes to 10-2. I think even at 10-2, if their losses are to Texas A&M and Alabama, especially if A&M maybe only loses to Alabama, so you're talking about a one-loss A&M team, probably an undefeated Alabama team, and you go to Atlanta at 10-2, and that's your record. I think if Tennessee beats Alabama in the SEC championship game, I still think they'd go to the playoff with 2 losses. They would be the SEC champion, and that would be their resume, with the other wins over Virginia Tech, who, by the way, looks great, and Florida and Georgia and all that. So it's not just like Orange Bowl revenue you're talking about. It's a potential playoff berth you're talking about for Tennessee and a chance at a national championship. I mean, the ramifications, if they don't get this right, is huge. And in terms of the executive power for Greg Sankey, I don't think he has the ability to flat out and say, you guys are going to meet, this Tuesday in this field and you're going to play. But he certainly can nudge some elbows and tell people they need to get this done. He could probably offer up some SEC resources in terms of if they have to buy out Presbyterian in South Alabama, maybe the total bill there would be $2 million. Maybe the SEC chips in half. Maybe they cover the whole bill. I don't know. He can certainly do some stuff like that to incentivize the fact that this gets done. But ultimately, they've got to get it done, because if they don't and it somehow has a negative impact or just impacts at all the race, I mean, it's not fair necessarily if they take it out and say, okay, we're only going to SEC East games either, because who knows, if they played, maybe Florida wins the game and it's a different story. So ultimately they've got to play, because if it has any impact at all, they did it wrong.
Hey, Steve, I got one more question.
Sure.
Let's entertain the thought of, after this season, let's say the Doors do part ways with Derek Mason. Derek's a great guy. I've talked with him several times. Good guy.
Yeah.
What if let's say they part ways with him? How about the possibility of a guy like Charlie Strong, with the coaching that he's had out in Texas and the recruitment abilities that he's had in the state of Texas, possibly being brought to Vanderbilt if that scenario did happen?
Well, first, obviously, Texas would have to get rid of Charlie Strong, which maybe increasingly likely as the season goes along. But I like it. He's a guy who's got great SEC ties. He's a really good recruiter, and Vanderbilt needs some recruiting strength right now. And also, what's the strength of Vanderbilt football right now? It's the defense. It's what Derek Mason's been in charge of, and that's what Charlie Strong knows best. So he can come in and hopefully keep that going while upping the recruiting. I like the fit there. The one negative to that scenario, besides the fact that obviously he would have to lose his job in order to be available for that, but the one negative I potentially see there is Charlie Strong's big struggle at Texas right now is the fact that his offense has been largely unimaginative, and they've had some issues there over the last couple of years. So if you're looking for more excitement on the offensive side, maybe Charlie Strong isn't the guy for that. But I like the thought, certainly looking out there, that he could be a guy, because as we saw with James Franklin, the biggest thing you need at Vanderbilt is you need someone to come in, create some excitement, and be able to recruit to give you the talent level to compete in the SEC, which is hard to do at Vanderbilt. And so that's one thing I think Charlie Strong would be very good at.
Hey, Steve, go Vols.
All right, we appreciate the call, Kevin. Again, phone lines are open. 737-7767 is the number. We can continue the college football conversation. And we can also switch some gears. We'll talk a little Titans getting set for big home game Sunday against the winless Browns. I say big because it's been a long time since the Titans have won a home game. They have the opportunity on Sunday. We'll get to that. Much more coming up right after this. Stay tuned. You're watching SportsLine on News Channel 5+.